The little girl had been unusually quiet from the moment she entered the examination room. Her parents sat on either side of her while Dr. Evelyn Hart prepared the routine pediatric checkup. Heme, weight, temperature, blood pressure. Nothing unusual. The girl was 7 years old, healthy-looking and calm, with dark blonde hair tied into 2 loose braids and curious green-brown eyes. Her name was Clara Bennett. Her mother, Rachel, sat near the examination table. Her father, Daniel, was reviewing the paperwork. Everything about the appointment was ordinary. Until Clara noticed the photograph on Evelyn's desk. It showed a large black and tan German shepherd, wearing a faded military K9 harness. The dog was sitting beside a younger Evelyn on a training field. The photograph was old, slightly faded. But the dog's face was clear. Clara stared at it, then slowly pointed. That dog is still alive. Evelyn stopped writing. What? Clara pointed again. That dog. Her father looked over. Her mother smiled awkwardly. Clara, sweetheart, that's just a picture. No. Clara shook her head. He's alive. Evelyn stared at the photograph. Her fingers tightened around the pen. What makes you think that? Clara looked directly at her. Because I know him. The room became quiet. Rachel laughed nervously. She loves animals. But Clara wasn't smiling. She looked almost confused by their reaction. He lives with us. Evelyn's pen fell from her hand. Before we find out how a 7-year-old girl could recognize a military K9 that disappeared years ago. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to see how far these stories travel. And subscribe for more emotional military K9 stories. Evelyn picked up the photograph. She looked at the dog, then at Clara. What's his name? Clara answered immediately. Archer. Evelyn's face lost its color. Her mother noticed. Doctor? Evelyn looked at Rachel. I'm sorry. She paused. Can you tell me where you got this dog? Rachel's expression changed. From a retirement shelter. When? About 8 months ago. Evelyn sat down. What shelter? Rachel gave her the name Pine Hollow Working Dog Rescue. Evelyn stared at the photograph. She knew that name, not because it was connected to Archer. Because years earlier, she had searched through its records after the dog vanished. Archer had been her military working dog. He had disappeared during a relocation between training facilities. No accident had been confirmed. No theft had been proven. No remains had ever been found. He had simply vanished. And after months of searching, the case had gone cold. Evelyn had spent years wondering whether he was alive. She had eventually left active K9 work. Now she was a pediatric nurse. She kept one photograph on her desk, the same photograph Clara had just pointed at. And somehow, that missing dog was living in this little girl's house. Evelyn looked at Clara. Does Archer have a scar here? She touched the area above her right eyebrow on the photograph. Clara nodded. Yes. What about his left ear? It bends a little. Evelyn's breathing changed. Yes. Does he make a small sound when he gets excited? Clara smiled. He does. Does he sleep near the door? Yes. Does he bring one old blue ball everywhere? Clara's eyes widened. Yes. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment. There was no longer any doubt. The dog was Archer. Her Archer. The same dog she had trained, the same dog she had searched for, the same dog she had eventually been forced to believe she might never see again. She looked at Clara. Can I ask you something? Clara nodded. Where is he now, at home? Evelyn swallowed. Your parents adopted him? Rachel nodded. He was already at the shelter when we found him. Did the shelter tell you he was a former military K9? Yes. Did they know his previous handler? Rachel shook her head. They said his records were incomplete. Evelyn stared at the floor. That explained everything. She looked at Daniel. Do you still have the adoption papers? Yes. Could I see them? Daniel studied her face. Why? Evelyn looked toward the photograph. Because I think the dog you adopted may have been missing for almost 4 years. The room became completely silent. Rachel looked at Evelyn. 4 years? Evelyn nodded. His name was Archer. She pointed toward the photo. He worked with me. Daniel looked at the photograph again. You were his handler? Evelyn nodded. Yes. Clara smiled. I told you. Rachel looked at her daughter. You knew? I know, Archer. Evelyn looked at the child. Something about the innocence of the statement broke through years of uncertainty. Clara wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't guessing. She genuinely believed the dog in Evelyn's photograph was the same dog sleeping in her house every night, because to her, he was simply Archer. Evelyn continued with the examination, but she could barely concentrate. She checked Clara's heart rate. Her lungs, her ears, everything was normal. But the entire time, one thought remained in her mind: Archer is alive. At the end of the checkup, Clara climbed down from the examination table. She walked toward the photograph. She pointed to Archer. Can you tell him I saw you? Evelyn smiled. Tell him what? That. I found his old picture. Evelyn's eyes filled. I will. Clara nodded, then asked, Do you want to see him? Evelyn couldn't answer immediately. Yes. The word came out barely above a whisper. Clara smiled. Then come home with us. Rachel looked surprised. Clara, what? You can't invite the doctor home. Why? Rachel laughed softly. Evelyn wiped her eyes. It's okay. She looked at Rachel. Would you be comfortable with me meeting him? Rachel looked at Daniel. Daniel nodded slowly. We'd like to understand what happened too. That evening, Evelyn stayed late. She searched old records, military K-9 transfer forms, retirement files, missing dog reports. Archer's service number, nothing current. Then she found something. A shelter intake photo, 4 years old. A black and tan German shepherd, slightly thinner. A faded harness. A small scar above the right eyebrow. The intake name was simply Archer. Identification pending. Evelyn stared at the photograph. The shelter had found him wandering near a rural highway after a severe storm. He had no active microchip. His military identification tag was missing. He had been frightened of vehicles. He avoided unfamiliar handlers. The shelter had eventually placed him with the Bennetts after months of rehabilitation. Evelyn leaned back. There was something strange, the intake date. She checked her old records. Her stomach tightened. That was the exact week. Archer disappeared. The same week. The same region, the same storm system. It wasn't a coincidence. Someone had found him. But how? And where had he been for months before the shelter received him? The next morning, Evelyn arrived at the Bennett home. Rachel opened the door. Come in. Evelyn stepped inside. The house was warm and comfortable. Family photographs, a child's drawings, a dog bed near the living room window. And then she heard it. Pause. Heavy pause, slow. Familiar. Evelyn stopped breathing. A German shepherd appeared at the end of the hallway. Gray muzzle, bent left ear. Small scar above the right eyebrow. Blue ball hanging from his mouth. Evelyn whispered. Archer. The dog froze. Clara stood beside him. See? Evelyn's eyes filled. That's him. Archer stared at her. For a few seconds, he didn't move. Then his ears lifted. The blue ball fell from his mouth. He took one step, then another. Evelyn lowered herself as much as she could. Hey, buddy. Archer stopped. His nose moved. He recognized her scent. His tail began to move once, then faster. And then, after almost 4 years, The military canine who had disappeared from Evelyn's life walked toward his former handler. She reached out. Archer pressed his head into her hands. Evelyn closed her eyes. He remembered. Clara smiled. I told you. But Evelyn couldn't answer. Because there was something even more painful than finding Archer alive. She realized the dog was carrying a worn leather strap around his neck. A strap Evelyn recognized immediately. It had belonged to her old K9 harness, and attached to it was a small metal tag that had never appeared in any military recovery report. Evelyn stared. Where did you get that? Rachel looked confused. It came with him from the shelter. Evelyn touched it. Her expression changed, because engraved on the back were 3 words she had not seen in 4 years. Return to E. Hart. And suddenly, the mystery wasn't simply how Archer had survived. It was, who had found him? And why had someone deliberately kept him hidden? Evelyn couldn't stop staring at the metal tag in Archer's collar. 3 words were engraved across the back, return to E. Hart, her initials, her handwriting, had never appeared on the tag. But the message was unmistakable. Someone had known who Archer belonged to. Someone had wanted him returned. And yet, he had never been returned. Rachel noticed Evelyn's expression. What does it mean? Evelyn looked up. I don't know. Daniel stepped closer. Are you sure? She nodded. I've never seen this tag before. Clara was standing beside Archer, gently stroking his neck. He likes it. Evelyn looked at the dog. You kept it on him? Rachel nodded. It was attached when we adopted him. Did the shelter say anything? They said the previous owner couldn't be located. Evelyn looked at the tag again. That's strange. What? The military would have had his records. Daniel frowned. Then why couldn't they find him? Evelyn didn't answer, because that was the question she had asked herself for almost 4 years. She sat at the kitchen table with Archer lying at her feet. It felt impossibly familiar. The same dog, the same eyes, the same habit of placing himself slightly to her left. Evelyn looked down. You still do that? Archer lifted his head. She smiled. You remember. Clara sat across from her. He follows you. He used to. Now he does. Evelyn looked at the little girl. Did he always stay on your left? Yes. Did he do it at the shelter? Rachel answered. Yes. Evelyn's expression changed. That wasn't random. Rachel looked confused. What do you mean? He was trained to stay there. Daniel looked at Archer. So he never lost his training. No. He adapted. Evelyn smiled. Good boy. Archer's tail moved. Rachel brought out the adoption folder. Evelyn opened it carefully. The shelter records were incomplete. The intake form listed only basic information. Male German Shepherd. Military background suspected. Found near Route 18 after severe weather. No current identification chip detected. Then another line caught Evelyn's attention. Dog arrived with leather collar and metal tag. Who signed this? Rachel looked. Shelter Director. Evelyn turned the page. There was a handwritten note. Animal unusually responsive to female voices. Appears to search for one particular person. Evelyn's breath stopped. What? Rachel leaned over. What's wrong? Evelyn pointed. That. She looked at Archer. Did he ever do that with you? Rachel nodded. He sometimes sits near the front door and watches women who enter. Clara smiled. He was waiting for you. Evelyn looked down. She didn't know what to say. If this mystery is keeping you hooked, consider subscribing. Sometimes finding a missing military K9 answers one question and creates 10 more. And tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to see how far these stories travel. The next morning, Evelyn contacted Major Samuel Reed, a former K9 records officer she had worked with during her service. He remembered Archer immediately. Archer? Yes. Are you certain? I saw him. Proof? Microchip match pending. Samuel paused. What about his tattoo? He still has the old identification mark. There was silence. Then, where did they find him? Evelyn gave him the shelter information. Samuel went quiet again. That area was part of an active search. For Archer? For you too. Evelyn frowned. What does that mean? When Archer disappeared, there were reports of a vehicle stopping along Route 18. No one connected it to him. Why not? The storm destroyed the camera footage. Evelyn leaned back. So someone could have found him. Yes. And kept him. Samuel didn't answer. That was never proven. Was it investigated? Not fully. Why? Because there was no evidence Archer had been taken. Evelyn looked toward the living room. Archer was sleeping beside Clara. She remembered the metal tag. Return to E. Hart. Someone had planned to send him back, but someone else had decided not to. That afternoon, a retired K-9 specialist visited the Bennett home. His name was Major Samuel Reed. He crouched near Archer. The dog looked at him. Samuel examined the old identification mark, then the harness scar, then the metal tag. He became serious. This is Archer. Evelyn nodded. I'm sure. Samuel looked at the tag. I've never seen this issued. Neither have I. He turned it over. There was supposed to be another tag. Evelyn looked up. What? His normal military ID. Where is it? Samuel shook his head. Missing. Rachel frowned. So somebody removed it? Possibly. Samuel examined the leather strap. This isn't military issue. Evelyn touched it. No. But someone attached the military wording. Samuel nodded, which means whoever handled him after the disappearance knew enough to recognize the importance of the dog. Clara looked confused. Why would they keep him? Samuel looked at her. We don't know. She looked at Archer. He wasn't being hurt. Evelyn smiled sadly. No, he was safe. Yes, then maybe they loved him. Samuel looked at Evelyn. Maybe. That answer stayed in the room, because it changed the mystery. Perhaps Archer had not been stolen for money. Perhaps someone had found a lost dog, and simply couldn't let him go. Later that evening, Evelyn received a phone call from the shelter director. I found something. What? An old intake interview. From when? The day Archer arrived. Can you send it? Yes. The file contained an audio recording. A volunteer had asked a local man how the dog ended up near the road. The man's voice was rough and elderly. He explained that he had seen the German Shepherd walking alone after the storm. He had stopped. The dog had approached his truck. And when he opened the door, Archer had climbed inside. Did the dog have identification? Yes. What did you do with it? I read the tag. What did it say? The man hesitated. I thought it might help. And I called the number. Evelyn froze. What number? The shelter recording was incomplete, but one phrase was clear. No answer. Then the volunteer asked, Why didn't you take him directly to police? The man replied, Because the dog wouldn't leave my porch. Evelyn looked at Samuel. The dog chose to stay. Samuel nodded. Maybe. The recording ended there. But it created another question. Who was the man? And why hadn't the call reached Evelyn? The shelter eventually identified him. His name was Walter Bell. He lived approximately 15 miles from the road where Archer was found. Evelyn and Samuel arranged to meet him. When Walter opened the door, he looked surprised. I wondered if someone would eventually come asking about the dog. Evelyn's heart tightened. You had Archer. Walter nodded. For 3 weeks. Why didn't you report him? I did. To whom? The number on the tag. Evelyn stared. You called the military number? Yes. What happened? No one answered. Did you leave a message? Yes. Why didn't you call again? Walter looked embarrassed. I thought they didn't want him. Evelyn's voice became quiet. Why would you think that? Because the dog didn't seem like he was coming back from somewhere. What do you mean? Walter sighed. He was exhausted. He wouldn't eat much. He kept looking down the road. And every evening, he paused. He sat at the gate. Evelyn knew. He was waiting. Walter continued. I couldn't keep him permanently, so I brought him to the shelter. Evelyn looked down. The entire mystery suddenly felt different. Walter hadn't stolen Archer. He had tried to help. But there was still one missing piece. Evelyn asked, when you found him, was he wearing this? She showed him the leather strap. Walter nodded. Yes. And this tag? Yes. Did you see anything else? Walter thought. Actually, he disappeared inside, returned with a small plastic bag. Inside was a damaged piece of metal. Evelyn took it. Her breath caught. It was Archer's original military identification tag. The same tag the Navy had reported missing. She turned it over. The identification number matched. Samuel stared. That explains why nobody could verify him. Evelyn looked at Walter. Where did you find this? On the road. With him? No. Several yards away, near the fence. Evelyn realized what had happened. During the storm, Archer's original collar had broken. Someone had found him. They couldn't identify him properly. The replacement tag had been made from the information available on the old harness. That was why the shelter couldn't connect him. There had never been a conspiracy, just a chain of ordinary mistakes. And one very unlucky dog. When Evelyn returned to the Bennett home, Clara was waiting. Did you find out? Evelyn smiled. Yes. What happened to him? She looked at Archer. He got lost. Did someone find him? Yes. Did they take care of him? They did. Clara smiled. I knew he wasn't alone. Evelyn nodded. No. He had people. Clara looked toward Archer. Did he remember you? Evelyn smiled. He never forgot. Archer lifted his head. Evelyn held out her hand. He walked toward her, then sat at her feet. Clara watched. Can he go back with you? Evelyn's smile faded. That was the question she had been avoiding. She was no longer in the military. Archer had a family. He was loved. Would taking him away be fair? Evelyn looked at Rachel and Daniel. Neither spoke. Then Rachel said quietly, We always knew he had belonged to someone before us. Daniel nodded. We adopted him because nobody came looking. He looked at Evelyn. Now we know who was looking. Evelyn's eyes filled. And suddenly she realized the final decision wasn't going to be about ownership. It was going to be about what was best for Archer. And that decision would have to come from the dog. Evelyn knew she had to make the decision carefully. For years, she had wanted only one thing: to know that Archer was alive. Now she knew. He was healthy, he was loved. And he had a family. That mattered. She sat with Rachel and Daniel in their living room, while Archer rested beside Clara. Evelyn looked at the dog. He belongs here. Rachel looked surprised. You're sure? Evelyn nodded. He has a routine. He has Clara. He has both of you. She paused. I don't want to take that away. Daniel leaned forward. But he was your partner. Evelyn smiled sadly. He was. Doesn't that mean something? It means everything. She looked at Archer. And that is exactly why I won't make this about me. Archer opened his eyes. Clara sat beside him. She stroked his head. Are you going to leave again? Evelyn looked at the girl. No. Clara looked relieved. Why? Because I know where he is now. That answer seemed to satisfy her. She rested her head against the dog. Archer remained perfectly still. The next morning, Evelyn returned to the Navy K-9 office. Major Samuel Reed sat behind his desk. Well? She told him everything. Samuel listened carefully, then asked, "What do you want?" Evelyn was quiet. "I want to see him." "You already did." "I want to stay in his life." Samuel nodded. "That's possible. But I don't want to take him from the family." Samuel smiled. "Good. Why?" "Because retirement placement isn't about who had the dog first." He folded his hands. "It's about who gives the dog the best life now." Evelyn nodded. "That's what I thought." The Navy arranged a formal meeting with Rachel and Daniel. The purpose wasn't to demand Archer's return. It was to confirm his history, review the adoption, and discuss whether a shared relationship could be appropriate. Rachel spoke first. "We didn't know who he was." Daniel nodded. "We would have contacted his former handler if we had known." Evelyn smiled. "I know." Rachel looked at her. "Do you want him back?" Evelyn looked toward Archer, then at Clara. "No." The room became quiet. "I want him happy." Rachel's eyes softened. "Then you can stay in his life." Evelyn looked surprised. "How?" "Come visit. Call him. Take him for walks when you can." Daniel smiled. "We'd rather he have both." Evelyn's eyes filled. "Thank you. If this reunion has touched you, consider subscribing." Sometimes finding someone you've lost doesn't mean taking them away from the life they've built. Sometimes it means being grateful that they're loved. And tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to see how far these stories travel. The first reunion after the decision was different. Evelyn arrived at the Bennett home with an old military photograph. Clara opened the door. "Did you bring it?" Evelyn smiled. "I did." She showed the photograph to Clara. It showed Evelyn and Archer during their service. Clara looked at it. "You were his mom?" Evelyn laughed. "Something like that." Rachel smiled. Archer appeared from the hallway. The moment he saw Evelyn, his ears lifted. He walked over, stopped, waited. Evelyn knelt as much as she could. She held out her hand. Archer touched it, then leaned against her. Clara smiled. "He likes you." Evelyn laughed softly. "I like him too." Over the next few months, the arrangement became normal. Evelyn visited every weekend. Sometimes she took Archer to the nearby accessible park with Clara. Sometimes she sat with him in the backyard. Sometimes she simply brushed his fur while Rachel prepared dinner. The dog never seemed confused. He understood that there were two homes in his memory: the family who had found him, and the handler who had trained him. Both were safe. Both were familiar. Both loved him. One afternoon, Evelyn brought something unexpected. An old military K9 ball. Blue, worn, scratched. Archer saw it. His ears lifted immediately. Clara laughed. "He likes that ball." Evelyn smiled. "He always did." She rolled it gently across the yard. Archer ran after it. For a few seconds, he looked exactly like the dog in the old photograph. Fast, focused, happy. Then he returned, dropped the ball at Evelyn's feet. She laughed. "You remember?" Archer wagged his tail. Clara looked at her. "Did you teach him that?" "Yes." "Does he still remember everything?" "Not everything." She looked at him. "But enough." Clara smiled. "That's amazing." Evelyn thought about the 4 years she had spent believing he was gone. Maybe memory wasn't as fragile as people thought. Maybe some bonds simply waited. The Navy eventually updated Archer's records. His missing status was closed. His service history was restored. His new retirement placement was formally documented. The record contained 2 families: his original handler, his adopted family, and a note: successful long-term retirement placement. Strong bond maintained with former handler through family-supported visitation. Evelyn read the note twice, then smiled. There had been no dramatic rescue, no secret enemy, No conspiracy. Just a missing dog, a broken identification tag, a storm, incomplete paperwork, and years of unanswered questions. But sometimes the most emotional stories weren't about impossible events. They were about people finally finding the answer they'd stopped expecting. One evening, Clara asked Evelyn, "Why did Archer disappear?" Evelyn explained carefully. "He got lost during a storm. Was he scared? Yes. Did he think you'd left him?" Evelyn looked at the dog. "I don't know." Clara frowned. "But he came back to you." Evelyn smiled. "No, he found both of us." Clara considered that, then nodded. "I like that better." Months later, Evelyn sat at the kitchen table with Rachel and Daniel. Clara was doing homework. Archer was asleep beneath the table. Rachel looked at Evelyn. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Clara hadn't said anything?" Evelyn became quiet. "I try not to. You would have never found him." "Probably not." Daniel nodded. "It's strange." "What?" "The person who brought you back to your dog was a 7-year-old girl." Evelyn smiled. "She wasn't looking for my dog. She was looking at a photograph and recognized someone she knew." Rachel nodded. "Sometimes children notice things adults stop seeing." Evelyn looked toward Clara. "I think you're right." 1 year after Clara's routine checkup, Evelyn returned to the same hospital examination room. The photograph was still there. Same desk, same frame. But now there was another photograph beside it. Archer sitting in the Bennett family's backyard. Clara beside him. Evelyn beside both of them. The nurse who entered the room noticed. "You have 2 pictures now." Evelyn smiled. "One is where he came from, and the other, where he is." The nurse looked at the photographs. "They look happy. They are." That evening, Evelyn received a message from Rachel, a photograph, Archer sleeping beside Clara while she read a book. The caption said, "Still keeping watch." Evelyn smiled. She saved it. Then opened the old photograph. The younger Archer, her old uniform, the training field. 4 years of memory. She put the 2 images side by side. The difference was obvious. The dog had aged. She had changed. Their lives had moved in different directions. But the bond hadn't disappeared. It had simply found another shape. A few weeks later, Clara asked Evelyn something while they walked through the park. "Do you think Archer knew where you were?" Evelyn smiled. "No." "Then how did he remember you?" she thought. "Dogs don't always need to know where someone is to remember them." Clara nodded. "That sounds like a superpower." Evelyn laughed. "Maybe it is." Archer walked beside them. His muzzle was grayer now, his pace slower. But every few steps, he still looked toward Evelyn. She noticed. She always would. At sunset, they stopped near a bench. Clara sat. Archer lay beside her. Evelyn looked at the dog. "For years, I thought the hardest part was losing you." Archer lifted his head. "But maybe it was not knowing what happened." She smiled. "Now I know." He rested his head against her leg. "And that's enough." Clara looked up. "You're not sad anymore?" Evelyn thought about it. "I still miss the dog you were." She stroked Archer's graying muzzle. "But I love the dog you became." Clara smiled. "Me, too." And that was the real ending. Not that Evelyn got her old military canine back. She didn't. Archer wasn't the same dog anymore. She wasn't the same handler. The years had changed both of them. Instead, something better happened. They found each other again. The 7-year-old girl who had casually pointed at an old photograph had reopened a story everyone thought was finished. She hadn't known the history. She hadn't known the missing reports. She hadn't known the unanswered calls. She had simply looked at a photograph and said the truth. That dog is still alive. And she was right. Archer was alive. Loved, save. and finally connected to the person who had spent years wondering where he had gone. Evelyn had once believed finding Archer again would mean taking him home. Instead, she learned something more important. Sometimes loving someone means accepting that they have built a good life without you. Sometimes the happiest ending isn't getting back what was lost exactly as it was. It's discovering that what you lost survived, changed, and is still able to love you. Archer had found a family. Evelyn had found Archer. Clara had found another person who loved the dog she cherished. And the photograph that started everything remained on Evelyn's desk. But now, whenever someone asked why she kept it there, she smiled, because it wasn't a photograph of a missing dog anymore. It was proof that some stories can disappear for years without actually ending.